When you hear people say that Arizona Immigration Bill, SB 1070, is necessary, the bill that calls for racial profiling in a show-me-your-papers society, what they're really saying is the federal government has failed in its duty to stop illegal immigration, that the federal government is not enforcing its own laws. Ironic enough, I personally encourage the federal government not to follow their own laws when it comes to taxation, eminent domain, national ID card, war, gun control, war on drugs, and the list goes on. But what's even worse is the government actually breaks natural law every day by using the threat of force, by using terrorism. Of course, we all know what happens if you do not pay your taxes. You go to jail. The state will use force on you, even if you don't infringe on anyone else. Free trade is vital to a free society. Not just the free flow of capital and equity, but also labor. Immigrants bring their own demand, even more so than newborn babies. Most of the people who will watch this video are offspring of immigration, and America used to welcome immigrants. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The government will always tell you to give it more power so it can catch all the illegal immigrants. But we must ask then, what is an illegal immigrant? The government, this mafia-style, fear-mongering bureaucratic sector, actually defines the term illegal immigrant as, quote, a non-citizen who has entered the United States without government permission, unquote. Illegal immigration is then simply a government-made idea. Every time you say the word illegal immigration, you perpetuate the belief that government has properly defined this term and that you are just enforcing something moral. Quite the opposite in effect, though. You are actually subsidizing and encouraging violence. You are pushing your civilization away from freedom and peace. Many on the right state that the welfare system is the problem, that it increases immigration. In some cases this is true, although I'm not sure how increases of humans are necessarily a bad thing. This is not a zero-sum game. But libertarians understand not all immigrants are welfare recipients. Most that immigrate do work. The real problem is that immigrants become the scapegoats for our underlying economic statism, our economic ills and turmoil. Instead of focusing on our current problems, immigration issues, created by government, diverts attention away from the real economic culprits, such as the Federal Reserve, government-sponsored enterprises, government-backed corporatism, statism, once again, another list that can continue for quite some time. Even though all these tangible and intangible ills find their roots at coercion. One question we should ask ourselves is, why do citizens of Mexico need to jump a border to live in America? Why not just go through the immigration system? Well, the answer, because there are caps on immigration. The borders are not open, and only a limited amount of human cattle are allowed through the stalls, at least on paper. Government discrimination and xenophobia towards immigration actually began in 1882 with the Chinese Exclusion Act that banned all humans with the livestock branding Chinese. Not that we can't find earlier signs of government discrimination. The problem is, the government sets these standards and says, you are a citizen, you are not, only 700,000 documented immigrants each year, and they do discriminate on race, regardless of the first-come, first-served rule, and you might not want to forget all those who jump the border and live in terror, just so they know they can get clean water in America. But liberty is colorblind. It cares not if you're white, black, brown, purple, hunter, green. It doesn't give a crap. The only thing freedom is concerned with is that you do not infringe on another human. This begs the question, where do they get this money and power to discriminate and use this false sense of patriotic xenophobia? From you. They use terrorism on you to extort your tax money. They take your taxes at the threat of gunpoint. If you do not pay, you will be arrested. All of this anti-freedom legislation, this anti-illegal immigration war, not only adds a burden to you and your family, not only to the immigrants, but also to the guards who are employed in this human farming, this hurting, this torture. My question to you is, when the American dollar begins to devalue, as M3 makes its historic, never-before-seen inflationary cycle, just as Mexico's government had done to the peso decades previous, which country will you and your loved ones flee to escape starvation and abject poverty? Will the billions of dollars in security border walls be there to keep people out? Many of whom will never want to come here after an economic fallout anyways. Or will these laws instead, like North Korea, keep us from emigrating, to keep us from leaving? The reason Mexicans are coming here is because their government and central bank already screwed up their economy decades ago. We're next. Wonder which statist, xenophobic country you will try to escape after the American dollar declines. Good luck finding a country in this world that will welcome bankrupt Americans. There aren't many left. Most of these countries are upset that we've been bombing the world and threatening them with sanctions if they do not jump on board. In the end, fulfilling this statist, false utopia called anti-illegal immigration legislation only goes to perpetuate racism and xenophobia and will do more harm on a free society than good. In fact, free trade of labor and open borders, by its very nature, discourages racism. It discourages conflict and engages our community with the world. Statism is conflict. Statism is division. Immigration is simply a political tool, a scapegoat for those who contributed to our economic downturn. The government is simply using government to avoid the real underlying problems created by government. The answer is freedom.